The chair recognizes the honourable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wish to thank Almighty God for once again giving me this opportunity to be present, to speak on behalf of the people of Marco City, and to amplify, to give voice to their dreams and aspirations, Madam Speaker. I'm truly honored and grateful to every resident of Marco City. Madam Speaker, we have gathered today to address the resolution that was just outlined by the side opposite, Madam Speaker, and second, for the conveyance, Madam Speaker, of the parcel of land to complete the process of the conveyance of the parcel of land to the group mentioned. This side has no opposition to this. It would have been good, Madam Speaker, had we been given more information. The Prime Minister sought to mention the amount that was received, 1.6 million. My colleague who will follow has a background in real estate and may be able to comment on the value of acreage in that particular area. But my purpose is not to delve into all of the details concerning the specifics of this transaction, but to simply say that we are not here to take issue with this. But, Madam Speaker, I will take issue with the comments made by the Prime Minister and by the member for Cat Island, Rumkey and San Salvador, and the member for Fox Hill, who I would certainly speak to during the course of my presentation. Madam Speaker, it is most unfortunate that what could have been a simple, straightforward discussion about government taking action to facilitate the forward movement of a development has unfortunately devolved into something else. Chest beating, patting on back by the Prime Minister and, of course, by the member for Fox Hill. And what is so ironic about it, Madam Speaker, is some of the remarks made by the Prime Minister, and it is now a narrative clearly in this administration where they love to accuse the Free National Movement of talking down the Bahamas, talking down Bahamians, etc., which is an absolute lie. It is an untruth, Madam Speaker. And they say it often, Madam Speaker, because they have no monopoly on caring about Bahamian people, and they have no track record of showing that they have traditionally acted on behalf of the Bahamian people more so than anybody else. That's a fact. And even among the group that traditionally people used to associate with the PLP, struggling Bahamians, they are a shadow of the PLP of the past, a shadow. So I don't believe that the average Bahamian believes, the struggling man and woman over the hill, from the top of Fort Finn Castle or the top of Fort Charlotte all the way down to Robinson Road, from Nassau Street to Village Road, believes that this is an administration that is working tirelessly to improve their lot and their condition, Madam Speaker. I certainly do not believe that. So when the member for Cat Island talks about inflicting reputational damage on the Bahamas, they love to go back to a statement made by the former leader. And so I don't litigate that today. I would only say to the member for Cat Island, Rumkey and San Salvador, as he can see, the Free National Movement is under new management. So his conversation his conversation about reputational damage, he need only look at their administration. So here's the irony of the presentation by the member for Cat Island. This is one of the comments that he made, that the things that the FNM said about Bahama sends certain signals to the international community.
But I said
It's the same. It's the same. It's the same. It is the same. It is. You can look at your presentation. Yeah, no, you look at it. That's not my job. If you are taking issue, just rebut. But that's not my job to go back through that. The bottom line is, Madam Speaker,
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Caroline Rumkey and
Right.
St.
My comments about the characterization of what is happening or what happened at Bahama when we were opening it, it's on record. Right? It's recorded, and I could lay them. I didn't intend to lay it, but I could lay them. And what I said about it, Madam Speaker, when I'm talking about the international community, what I'm saying, it wasn't tied to how he described it. I described it to show how the contrast between you and I, or the FNM and the PLP. That's what I did. What I said, Madam Speaker.
What did I say that you were taking issue with? That's what the point of order.
No,
Help me understand.
no.
What did I say that you're taking issue with? Because you spoke and I listened.
Honourable member.
I want to know. What did I say?
Honourable member.
What did I say?
Honourable member. He's raising on a
point of order.
to say that what you said
Point of order.
was untrue.
What he said, I said was not true. And what he said was that I attributed remarks to the former Prime Minister, Dr. Menace. He wanted to remind me that the FNM is now under new management, not new leadership. I take the difference. New management, he wanted to remind me of that. And that has something to do, that those comments were tied to how the international community viewed us as a country. That's what I understood him to be saying. I said no such thing. What I did was all domestic. What he was saying about the opening, calling it fake, disastrous provisions, and blah, blah, blah. And then I went on to say, right, to contrast the PLP from the FNM, I went on to say that this resolution, right, the transfer of the property, was contained in a memorandum in the heads of agreement signed in 2019. I was not the government in 2019. That's what I was talking about. In 2019, the Bahama. No, that's the contrast because what? I was contrasting.
The issue is simply this. The member for Kent Island, Rumkey and St. Salvador, not just in 1, 2, 3, or 4 presentations, seek to give the impression that the Free National Movement talks down the reputation of the country and individuals. And I am saying it is not only untrue, it is a lie. And I want to point out,
Honourable member.
and so, Madam Speaker,
Honourable member, I am right here, and I did not hear the honourable member.
Madam,
talk down the country. He was contrasting.
And so, Madam Speaker, I wish to continue my.
The chair recognizes.
I wish to continue my presentation. What is the point of order?
Madam Speaker, I was showing the distinction between the FNM and the PLP. We honored the commitments made by them. And I said, not honoring commitments is looked at by the international community. They want to ensure that they have a government when they don't want, whatever agreement they entered into with a government, if the government changed, the government coming in would rely on it. That's what I said. I had nothing to do with the commentary. You see, at the end of the day, they call it fake. They call the terms that we entered into disastrous, right? They ridicule Prime Minister Christie and much more. I can say much more than what they had to say about it. But 4 months after they got into office, what was fake became a reality to them. It was a Damascus moment for them.
Thank you, honourable member. Marcus, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, I continue where I left off. The same member for Kent Island, Rumkey, and St. Salvador, I recall attending the opening, Madam Speaker, of the cruise port. the same cruise port development that was shepherded by the Free National Movement, both the member for Kid Island, Rumkey in Salvador, and the member for Exuma attended, made remarks, again celebrated it as an important transformational moment for the country. The PLP, prior to the election, are on record as having a different view altogether on the matter. So when he talks about Bahama, carry on. But what I do know is in a similar fashion, they had lots to say about that particular project. So this attempt to act brand new as if there are matters that some members of an administration take issue with ahead of an election and then embrace afterwards. This is not newsworthy or noteworthy. My point is, and my point stands, I've sat in this parliament, I've stood in this parliament, and I've heard over and over again, the PLP celebrates the Bahamas globally, the FNM doesn't. It is untrue. It is a falsehood, Madam Speaker. And if this administration is concerned about the reputation of the Bahamas, there are a number of actions they would discontinue taking that we believe inflict reputational damage on the Bahamas. And so they often say, be careful of what you say, because what you say is carried internationally, and it could paint a picture of the governance of the country. And that's the point the Prime Minister, on his point of order, just reiterated. He is saying, we did this, because not to do this signals to the international community certain things about the quality of leadership and whether or not leadership is prepared to honor past agreements that they enter into. That's the point that he made. And I'm saying that this Prime Minister is in many ways not qualified to make that statement, even on this. He makes this point on this resolution, while they themselves have made a number of decisions that sends the wrong signal to the international community. And so let me go through a couple of them for you. It is rich, Madam Speaker, that the Prime Minister seeks to use the evolution of the Bahama project as the banner he wishes to hold up to the world as good governance by an administration. Because, Madam Speaker, they're in no position to hold up Bahama as good governance. Were there decisions made by the former Prime Minister that assisted in the forward movement of that project? Oh, of course, Madam Speaker. I know well the discussions around the labor component and how many Bahamians ought to be integrated in the project. In fact, he probably did a better job than the Davis administration, who is still struggling to tell the public what the labor component is going to be on the new hospital, the new specialty hospital that they intend to build. They don't seem to have either their ducks in a row or the courage to say to the Bahamian people whether or not there will be less than 50% or 50% of the labor force is going to be Bahamian or not. So when you hold up Bahama and you're saying, hey, there are some things we did that the others couldn't do or refused to do or didn't believe in, I'm just saying, Madam Speaker, you should tell the whole story. Because this is the same Bahama that the same administration that he served in as Deputy Prime Minister was being accused of conflict of interest in that matter. This administration. So if he wishes to hold up Bahama, tell the whole story. Tell the story on why some believe that a part of the basis of the court action, that those who felt that they were aggrieved and disadvantaged, that they in fact went to court asserting that there was a conflict of interest. And so the Prime Minister is holding up this project, but not willing to talk about the messiness of this project by virtue of having persons related to senior advisors receiving a payment that persons to date seem not to understand what the purpose of that payment was. So much so that it is named in court document and it is a part of what is relied upon to have a judgment that we now have today surrounding Bahama. So if the Prime Minister wants to talk about the poster child of good PLP governance, then he has to explain to that same international community that he wishes to accuse the FNM of putting out statements that may sully the name of the country. It is under their administration that they made certain decisions involving themselves, and some say they went too far in the level of their involvement in the project, so much so that future court actions responded to the claim of a conflict of interest and seemed to have supported in its judgment that there was some sort of collusion or conflict of interest between the sitting government and one of the partners in the development of Bahama. So let the member for Rumkey and Cat Islands in Salvador, as he beat his chest, as he pats himself on the back, and talk about them being the model of good governance, let him explain why today that we have several critical tourism assets that many persons are concerned about the future status of those assets by virtue of what happened under their administration, Madam Speaker. So Madam Speaker, that's one of the issues. Madam Speaker, I could go further, but I won't. I will only say this much today, because we'll come to this again. That one of the same persons related to that project, is now embedded in another multinational company that is doing business in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, who we have no fundamental problems with that company. We believe that the business, the investment they have in the Bahamas is good investment. We know that they wish to expand their footprints in the Bahamas, but we are worried about some of the advice that they are receiving from one side of the political equation in this country, Madam Speaker. And in the fullness of time, we will talk more about the company that primarily operates in Grand Bahama and is seeking to expand its footprint. We wish not for politics to sully the future development of the Bahamas in general or Grand Bahama in particular. So when they start talking about good governance, when you have figures who are central to the Bahama conflict, similarly now embedded in other companies, we have concern. And I'll leave that there for the moment, Madam Speaker. Let me go further. The Prime Minister, rather than talk more about land policy, which again, I would presume that the resolution is related to how governments use land to facilitate further development. And obviously, Madam Speaker, we use land for agriculture development, housing development, industrial development, etc. Rather than the Prime Minister elaborate on a vision, as we have said, we intend to use Bahamian land to again launch the largest housing projects in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and to shave substantially costs of the largest investment that the average Bahamian family would ever make on any item. And we will use Bahamian land and its conveyance to transform Bahamians' lives in a way that has never been done. We will complete, Madam Speaker, the land audit that has been going on under successive administrations and can't seem to be completed, Madam Speaker. We'll go further, Madam Speaker. What is the point of order?
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Cat Island, Rumkey and San Salvador.
The member conveys.
Honourable member, allow the member to speak to
The member,
point of order, please.
The member is introducing an issue of land policy, because we are here dealing with a matter that they agreed to. We are fulfilling their arrangement. So what does land policy do? What does land policy do with my fulfilling their promise and their obligation? That's what we're doing. So there's no need. I will decide how I present my right. I know what I'm saying. What I'm saying, Madam Speaker, right, that the member ought to suggest that I should be speaking about it. It's rather fortuitous.
Thank you, Honourable.
Madam Speaker, we are in your hands with respect to the ruling, but it is abusive for the member to get up and not state what the point of order is when we are required to say what the point of order is. We are required, Madam Speaker. So Madam Speaker, as I said before, one would have expected that he talked about, again, land policy and the use of land for the transformation of the housing sector or agriculture or industrial sector, or to talk about maritime planning and how it is important for the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of the Environment, and the Ministry responsible for fisheries to engage in a discussion on how we are going to use our marine environment, Madam Speaker, and, of course, to complete the land audit, Madam Speaker. There's also a need, Madam Speaker, as we discuss this resolution, to look at an audit with respect to the granting of land leases, crown grants, and the use by this government of the compulsory acquisition of land that some residents have argued that the government is taking land from them and giving it to their supporters. And this is an accusation, Madam Speaker, that has been leveled by residents, particularly in the Fox Hill community. So Madam Speaker, don't just sing it, bring it, Madam Speaker. And so with respect to the land policy, we did not hear this from this Prime Minister in this debate. What he sought to do, Madam Speaker, he sought to talk about Bahama, which I've already said was a bad example for him to use, having sat as Deputy Prime Minister, and now we are in the international arena being examined for the accusation of a government colluding with a construction company to wrestle away a project from an investor. That's what the Prime Minister introduced today in his presentation. We had no intention on going down that road, but we wish to remind the public that the same banner that he has held up is the same banner, Madam Speaker, that the world is looking at, that he participated in as a senior member of the PLP, and further as the Deputy Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, when he wants to talk about, or this administration wishes to talk about, what signals do we send to the public by our actions or inactions, we remind them. We remind them that they promise to shake the tree so that the bad apples will fall out, Madam Speaker. Note, as he makes a distinction between management and leadership, note he didn't say he planned to dig up any tree that's consistently producing corrupt fruit. He just can shake it, Madam Speaker. But what we understand that to mean, we understand it to mean that they never come forward with the reports of investigations that they promised the Bahamian people that they would come with. One, Madam Speaker, was in the aftermath of a then director in immigration raising concerns about a minister operating outside of the boundaries of his duty and quite possibly engaging in matters of granting of citizenship without the requisite cabinet conclusion. The member for Kid Island, Rumpke in San Salvador was more concerned about how that information got into the public domain than he was more concerned about the whistleblower and how the information got out, rather than being concerned about, was it fact? Were there cases where it was done, that action was carried out, there was naturalization, without a cabinet conclusion? Where is the investigation he promised during that period? We have not yet seen that investigation. There was concerns about explosive voice notes and a case that ensued. Again, during that period, we heard discussions about a thorough investigation is being done with agencies locally and internationally. I have not heard, Madam Speaker, and maybe I missed it, the update on what have those investigations, if anything, yield, Madam Speaker. And so, again, this administration claims that it is concerned about the reputation of the country. They spent $10 million through Ministry of Tourism to address a smear campaign that they then initially sought to give the impression that maybe it's the side opposite. Clearly, it was not the side opposite. But what we're concerned about is their internal war to try and figure out how was the $10 million spent to address this smear campaign. That's a part of their internal discussion. So we are saying when you are concerned about the reputation of the country, again, point to who is seeking to damage it. You've spent funds. How did you spend funds? And what the results of committing $10 million to addressing these attacks that you talked about, that none of us on this side had anything to do with or was aware, certainly I was not aware of it. So Madam Speaker, if they are concerned about the reputation of this country, then this government should again address the issue of good governance, competitive bidding, rather than $410 million in direct awards without any competitive bidding, Madam Speaker. And let me go further. That's only a fraction of what they have spent in direct awards, because we don't have any reporting from Ministry of Tourism for the last 2 years plus. The tourism has not released any documents showing who they are signing tens of millions of dollars of contracts with, Madam Speaker. That doesn't include contracts by a number of the state-owned enterprises that have gone to individual companies, Madam Speaker. So we are, in our view, north of $500 million in direct awards. Again, companies from the Bahamas and from overseas no doubt would have loved to be involved in a competitive bidding process, as happens in country where there's good governance. But this is the same administration who locks out everyone else so that they could determine very specifically who the few are who will benefit from these contracts, Madam Speaker. That also sends the wrong signal to the local entrepreneur who wants an opportunity and the international investor who wants an opportunity, Madam Speaker. So egregious is this government in that kind of behavior that no less than the Deputy Prime Minister pointed to the Prime Minister as the person who signed an agreement in Exuma, where he's the Member of Parliament, Madam Speaker, for a $1 billion deal with the moorings, putting down moorings. And even though the outrage of the community forced the Prime Minister to cancel the event, Madam Speaker, we really don't believe it's fully canceled. Because guess what, Madam Speaker? They ain't removed no moorings out of the water. The trailers are still there with additional stuff in it. Some are still on the property adjacent and opposite the trailers. And then the government, Madam Speaker, came during the budget presentation and passed a little tiny bill, it must be 2 or 3 pages in it, that we said give the clear impression, that maritime bill, that what they are seeking to do is to plug one of the holes that would allow them to come back and reissue that same contract, Madam Speaker. No less than the Deputy Prime Minister took issue with the mooring deal and said it was a good thing that it was canceled. In other words, to break it down in layman's terms, it was a good thing that the Prime Minister, in facing the weight of public outrage, reversed himself. And so the Deputy Prime Minister was over a figurative bowl of water, washing his hands like Pontius Pilate to absolve himself from that situation, Madam Speaker. So when we are concerned about reputational damage to the country, it is those billion-dollar deals, that over $500 million worth of single-source direct award contracts that locks out the average Bahamian, who this government, who I said is a shadow of the previous PLP, this government who promised to wipe every tear from every eye, and without crediting Revelation in the process of using it, all of those struggling persons do not have an opportunity, Madam Speaker, to eat from the trough, because the PLP has determined the select group of people who are going to eat under their administration, Madam Speaker. And on that day, the Deputy Prime Minister said, enough is enough. I don't know these people who eat. They ain't my people who eating. So let me shut this down and show the people in Exuma, I with y'all. I with y'all. So Madam Speaker, if the administration is concerned about the image and reputation of the country, they have to behave differently, Madam Speaker. They have to act in a way that people will see their consistent actions as being ethical and legal, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, the member for Cat Island, Wamkin, San Salvador, got on his feet in this House on multiple occasions and savaged ordinary Bahamians and international agencies who were working with them, who were feeding people during one of the most difficult periods we've had in our country in the pandemic. Savage them, accuse them of wrongdoing, Madam Speaker, of stealing money related to the feeding program. That's what the accusation was, Madam Speaker.
I can't allow you.
And I can give you, I'll give you two examples. That's essentially what happened. It's essentially what happened.
I will have that stricken from the record. I can't allow.
Madam Speaker, even with my voice, I've listened to this fiction being written, the new book being written in our presence, quoting things that were never said by persons who are not here now, the DPM, making allegations about legality and talking about people suspecting illegality. That is not honorable.
No, that's
That is not an honorable thing to do. And the member for Marco City needs to start to act honorably and repeating what other people say. And it could be Jeremy, who's walking up and down Shirley Street. If he says something, Marco City will come in here and repeat it and say somebody has said it. And that is what he's been doing. And it is disgraceful. And what is more, he talks about talking down the country, and then he comes in here and just does it. It is just amazing. The bottom line to it, Madam Speaker, is the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador said people bought back money, which happened as a fact, that there wasn't full accounting. The report actually said something that was disclosed, that people were paid fees. Nobody knew that. Now we know that. And Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador talked about the need to do accounting. And an allegation of a need to do accounting is not the story, the fiction that the politrickster is now running in this House.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I would note that the member didn't give me the specific, or the public, the specific examples of what I said, but let me go to the food program in particular. Madam Speaker, they arrested folks. Parade them, drive them up and down. Arrested. Madam Speaker, and some people are qualified to even be responding to this, but let me leave that for the moment. So, Madam Speaker, what was said, Madam Speaker, specifically, was that there were funds that they could not account for, right? Madam Speaker, which we knew to be untruths. I stood on my feet, having participated in that program in Grand Bahama, which involved the Christian Council, Madam Speaker, private organizations, including the Chamber, including the Port, all various groups getting together to provide assistance to people. So, Madam Speaker, the persons that the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador referred to, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General, Madam Speaker, conducted a report and did not confirm the nonsense that was said by the insinuations that were put on the public and international record, Madam Speaker. And this is the point I'm making. Persons assist Bahamians who are going through a difficult time. Some of them are Bahamians, some are foreigners. There are others who donate, who are from other countries. If you say to the international community, I just want you to know, when you help Bahamians through these various organizations, chances of them feeling the benefit of it is slim to none, because you heard what the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas said. So that audit, the audit that was done by the Auditor General, was a wonderful thing, again, to inspire afresh people of goodwill who wish to help Bahamians, but whose trust may have been shaken by his characterization of the program itself and individuals who participated in it. And it was and is shameful, and he is unwilling to apologize, unwilling to do so. And yet the member for Freetown wishes to come and sanitize an obscene set of actions.
And Speaker, on and on and on, writing stories, requiring people to account is exactly what Marco City runs on with, about governance. To speak, Madam Speaker, about actually
Members-
accounting, speaking about
This is interrupting, you know, it's against the rules.
interrupting.
You committed the rules. Yeah, I'm committed the rules.
North Abaco isn't interrupting me, you interrupting me.
Two trials.
So, Madam Speaker, the only point made was the need to find records. And any person internationally or locally who has a difficulty with that should question why. And so, yes, people took issue during Dorian that you had to sign in for customs when you bought stuff. And nobody objected to it, they just wanted it to be more seamless. And so nothing Marco City said that would say that any person handling millions of dollars in public funds to feed those terribly in need at the time should feel free not to have to account for it. And the only point the Prime Minister made, and I remember it clearly, was that some people returned money that they didn't even know needed to be returned, which in and of itself demonstrates somebody not accounting, or you would have known that this person has money to come back. And so characterizing, demanding accountability and accounting for millions of dollars while people were hungry. The one point, if I may finish the point of order, the one point that the Auditor General did clearly show was that persons were receiving payment for managing a program. When Great Commission didn't receive a commission, where all sorts of persons didn't. And so when you get the accounting, then you speak. But to mischaracterize in this fictional way is not honorable.
Thank you, honorable member.
You call people thieves when you
What I find rich about talking about honorable, these members, Madam Speaker, from the side opposite, have sat when we have mentioned on multiple occasions that they have put $20.2 million in what we call a ghost or a shell company and refuse to explain to the public what the situation is. So when you hear the member for Freetown, this is why you have to question, Madam Speaker, what motivates some of the comments. If you are serious about accountability, which he just spent time, Madam Speaker, he just spent time saying the questions raised were about accountability, seeking clarity on matters. I have raised questions. I've written to the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and St. Salvador, seeking clarity and accountability on $20.2 million put into a company that, again, clearly was not registered as a functioning company, who we don't know who the board of directors are. We don't know what the money was used for. So if you want to be accountable for that. Be accountable for the $300 million that you have as a result of the bond offering, and what are you doing with that? We could give you example after example, Madam Speaker, of lack of accountability. So when they come with this red herring and this deflection as if they are committed to transparency and accountability, Madam Speaker, the public knows better, and that world they keep talking about out there also knows better, Madam Speaker. I close with this, Madam Speaker. The member for Rumkey and St. Salvador and again Cat Island made the point about how the tourism industry is performing. What we have said historically, Madam Speaker, is that under successive administrations, the cruise passenger that come to the Bahamas have in fact grown. What we have also been concerned about, which is why we have made recommendations around the need for a strategic plan to increase stopover visitors. That's what the issue is, Madam Speaker. We are not extracting sufficient from the arriving cruise passengers because of a scarcity of attractions, which we share responsibility for. Again, transportation experts not receiving sufficient share of that, Madam Speaker. Insufficient persons leaving the ports that are built and owned by the cruise ships. But the bigger issue is we have not done sufficient to again launch a strategic plan to increase stopover visitors. That line has been virtually flat for over successive administrations, Madam Speaker, particularly when you look at the state of Florida. So when this government is beating its chest and patting itself on the back, it should be honest about the challenges we face and then put forth their vision for how we intend to fix it. And that's why we've been talking about the various things we would do in the tourism space to again increase stopover visitors in the Bahamas, Madam Speaker. And so, again, I end where I began. It would have been wise, in my view, for the Prime Minister to have addressed the transfer of the property or the completion of what had begun under us, and to, again, talk about whatever the land use, the land policy is of the government. But, again, he chose Bahama as his poster child for an example of PLP good governance. And locally and internationally, again, the narrative says something totally different. He touted success of the PLP, but we've learned, Madam Speaker, he does not have a surplus. They have increased the subventions to the state-owned enterprises, Madam Speaker. And much of the reputational damage being inflicted on the Bahamas is being inflicted by poor actions or inaction of the Davis-Cooper administration. And with that, Marco City rests, Madam Speaker.